my little explorers. Daniel Boone back here with you today, here to teach you more about Lewis and Clark. Now, you'll remember that Thomas Jefferson asked them to explore what was over there in that Louisiana territory that he had just purchased from Napoleon, the Emperor Napoleon of France. So they're about to set off to find out what is over there, and I think it's going to be a grand adventure, and we get to hear all about it. Are we ready? All right, let's do it. Now, before they began their exploration of the Louisiana Territory, Meriwether Lewis traveled to Indiana to join William Clark and gather their team of explorers. Lewis explained, "As I wrote in my letters, Will, because the United States government is paying for this exploration, we will travel as members of the U.S. Army. I ask that we be made co-captains so we would have equal command over our men." There it is. Soon they traveled to the city of St. Louis, where the wide Missouri River flows into the even mightier Mississippi River. St. Louis was a frontier town. Its streets and stores bustled with hunters and trappers who had chosen to live far beyond the more settled cities of the East. The two captains knew that it would take courage, intelligence, and skill to reach the Pacific, so they looked for people who knew how to survive in forests and on rivers and mountains. Remember what survive means? I believe that Rattenborough taught you how to survive. Survive means to stay alive, to not die, right? Yeah. These people would need to know how to hunt and fish for food and build shelters in which they could stay warm, dry, and safe. So they had to build shelters because there were no Airbnbs and no hotels or anything like that. They didn't even have like tents. They couldn't go to Cabela's and buy a tent. They had to know how to build shelters. Some were Americans who had grown up in Virginia or Pennsylvania and who had later moved farther west to live in Kentucky. Others were Canadians from the country north of the United States who spoke French as well as English. Ooh, I bet they'd come in handy. The two captains finally put together a team of trusty men who were daring and brave enough for the expedition. Ooh, expedition, there's a word. So an expedition is when a group of people travel together for some special reason, such as exploring. Now, among the men who joined Lewis and Clark's group, one man stood out. He appeared before them one day dressed half in manufactured clothing and half in the animal skins favored by woodsmen. "I am George Drew..." I gotta read this one. Drouillard, he told them. "I hear you are going all the way to the Pacific. Ask the others you have already hired about me. They all know me. I speak French, English, and some Native American languages, so I can help you communicate with your men and with many Native people you meet." Now, when I say communicate, communicating is sharing your thoughts with someone. Speaking is one form of communication. So if you're sharing your thoughts with somebody, you need to be able to speak with them, right? And if you don't have the same language, you need somebody who speaks their language. So he's like, I'll come in handy because I can help you communicate. When different tribes meet, they use this sign language since their spoken languages are not all the same. So you can also communicate through sign language, which is language through your hands. Like Miss Darcy shows you that A, this is the letter A, and you guys sing it and you sign it. Sing it, say it, sign it. The letters of the alphabet. You know what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about, the sign language, to help them communicate since their language is different. I can ask them about the country ahead and help them understand that you have come in peace. This is all that George Drouillard that's saying all this. Now, Lewis and Clark had to gather supplies as well as people. They were going to need to take a lot of things with them on their trip. They purchased some long, narrow canoes called pirogues and one larger, wider boat called a keelboat. On the deck of the keelboat stood a little cabin that held supplies. Now, this is a keelboat, and that's the little cabin that would hold the supplies. This up here is that pirogue. Moving the keelboat was slower and more difficult than moving a pirogue. You can imagine that would be a lot harder to move than that. When a strong enough wind was behind them, it pushed the keelboat along. But if there was no wind, the men had to take turns pushing and pulling it with poles and ropes. Whoopsie. See it, say it, sign it. The letters of the... Oh, you're back. I'm sorry. That song is in my head now. On Monday, May 14th, 1804, the explorers were ready. They called themselves the Corps of Discovery. Now they would leave St. Louis and travel west along the Missouri, as President Jefferson had requested. As one of them, Private John Whitehouse, wrote in his diary that day, "We hoisted our sail and set out in high spirits for the western expedition." At last, they were on their way. And of course, like I like to do, I'm going to leave you in suspense and we'll find out more tomorrow about their adventure. For today, I want you to grab your core folder, open it up and grab that next thing out here. Tomorrow we'll do word work, but for today, you're going to have this worksheet. What you're going to do on this worksheet is you're going to list 5 tasks Lewis and Clark completed. How are you going to know those tasks? Well, you need to read this little portion. Meet Lewis and Clark. President Thomas Jefferson asked them to explore the West from Missouri to the Pacific Ocean. They had many important tasks such as making maps, collecting plants, drawing animals, and keeping a journal about their experience. They also met and traded with the Native Americans. Their journey took 2 years. So you have a little coloring sheet of Lewis and Clark here, and you can write down 5 things that they did or that they completed from this reading right here. That's your work for today. I'll see you tomorrow and we'll learn more about Lewis and Clark. Bye-bye.